everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. So, welcome to this BSc panel discussion titled Scalable Blockchains L1, L2, or Multichains. So, my name is Gwendolyn, and I lead investments in the BSc 1 Billion Growth Fund. And today I have four panelists with me. We have someone from Anchor, Seller Network, ChainStack, Figment. And today we're looking to have, a live discussion where I'll ask them questions. Imagine we're on a coffee shop and a bar, what have you, and we're looking to have a discussion and conversation on this topic. And we'd love to also see your questions. So feel free to input your questions. I'll see them. I might pick some of them to ask as well. Okay. So at this point, I'd love to bring on our panelists to give a short introduction about who they are, what their project aims to do, what are they doing in the company, and we'll take it on from there. So I'll first like to invite on stage Stanley from Anchor. Stanley?
Hi. Hi, everyone. My name is Stanley. I'm the CTO and the co-founder of Anchor, Anchor.com. So for anyone who is not familiar with what Anchor is, so basically we are a blockchain startup in San Francisco, Silicon Valley. Our major service is on the blockchain infrastructure service. So like the API service, RPC service, and liquidity stakings. So actually we have a lot of experience about the capacity and the scalable blockchain service. So I would like to share our experience and our ideas with everyone. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Stanley. And I'm just going to go right now. Clayton from Figment.
Hey, how's it going? I'm Clayton, head of protocols at Figment. No, that doesn't mean much to most people listening, but we're primarily a proof of stake infrastructure provider. So we run validators on about 50 different proof of stake protocols right now. And we also offer node infrastructure as well on a lot of those networks. I'm responsible for maintaining relationships with the protocol teams and protocol communities that we support with our infrastructure, and then actively looking for newer ones to support as well.
Thank you, Clayton. And Mo from Seller.
Hi, everyone. It's great to be here and great to talk to everyone. I'm from Seller. So Seller started off as a layer 2 scaling project focused on state channel. But recently, we really kind of transformed using the existing technology we have to a very broad multi-chain interoperability platform that allows general message to be passed between different chains and allow new kind of cross-chain applications so that a user can just sit on one chain and access all the other different chains, liquidity, and applications and state. So we do believe this is going to be a multi-chain future, and we're quite exciting to push forward for this.
Thank you, Mo. And last, we have Eugene from ChainStack.
Hi, guys. Thanks for having me. So I'm co-founder and CEO of ChainStack. We do tools for blockchain developers. So primarily, we're focused on infrastructure. At the moment, we provide reliable nodes for different protocols, including EVM-based and non-EVM-based as well. And we are building other things like applications on top of these protocols, like templates. We have marketplace integrations with other tools that are being used by the community. So yeah, that's pretty much what we do. Thank you.
Very awesome. All of you took I think 10 seconds or something like that, right? So yeah, this is great. Super efficient. And, so again, to everyone, we're looking here to have a lively conversation. Please prepare your questions, post them in whatever channels that you're looking at right now, be it Twitter, be it YouTube. We'll see them and I will ask your questions directly to the panelists as well. Yeah. Feel free to also put in your comments. So kind of let's start off with the topic at hand again about scalability and scalable blockchain. Kind of where are we right now in terms of the landscape of the dream or vision, right? When we talk about blockchain, there's this goal, it's like this technology that's wow, it's so amazing. But at the same time, we've all seen the scalability problems over the last several years, especially last year, right? And a lot of you here are dealing with some problems of that yourself, yet you're also helping the ecosystem be more scalable. So kind of where are we at right now? So this is a very broad question, so let us set the ground and then we can dive into it. Yeah. So who would like to kind of give a go?
Okay, I can start first. So basically, I think for the scalability of the blockchain, basically, my opinion is there's a two part of the scalability. The first one is the client side, the RPC side, which means for the developer, they want to have a stable endpoint, a stable resource to access to the blockchains. This majorly focus on, the geo-IP, load balancing, caching, uptime monitoring, etc. On the other side, there's a second part of the scalability is the protocol itself. As we can see recently, the blockchain, a lot of blockchain reached to its capacity, especially for Binance Smart Chains. For the last 2 weeks, we see probably for each block that we can see to 500, even 600 transaction per blocks. And still there are a lot of gaming and the DeFi company would like to get on board with Binance Smart Chains. So that brings a lot of difficulty for us and also for other node providers for other node operators. And also Anchor is one of the BSC validators. We see a lot of times the blocks we start to generate empty blocks because of the congestions. So for that part, I think it requires more idea of thought to design for example, in this case, BSC 2.0 to further increase the capacity of the blockchain itself. There's a couple of ideas since Anchor is involved with the discussion about BSC 2.0. There is multi-chain structures, there's a security considerations, and also there's a interchain communications. So I think at this moment, client side, the scalability is not that big of deals because there are a lot of solutions. We definitely see there's a couple of team is working on that. However, for the protocol or consensus levels of the scalability, that is something interesting for the next years. We can see layer 2, we can see multi-chain structure. We will see probably there will be a couple of new solutions came out on the first half of the next year, 2022, especially I think for Binance Smart Chain, since it has the most adopted application at this moment.
Yeah, thank you, Stanley, for saying that. Right? Yeah, on BSC on our side, we have a lot of plans because we really believe in a multi-chain world. And so, like you said, we've been talking to many players like yourself to really look at BSC Plus, right? What's next and how can we again work with more protocols and different other bridges, relayers, and what have you, right? So thanks for setting the ground. So I wanted to also kind of expand the conversation, right? So while this is like a BSC hosted and kind of core team kickoff conversation, again, believe in a multi-chain world, please, and I know a lot of you are working on multi-chain with multi-chains anyway, right? So feel free to kind of bring the experiences in because I think there's a lot to learn, across the different chains. Every chain has their own pros and cons, some more similar than others, right? So feel free to just bring in insights, yeah? So on that, thanks Stanley for kicking us off. And I wonder whether anyone else has any thoughts as to that, again, broad-based question as well.
Yeah, I think on the kind of a multi-chain, just continuing on the multi-chain side there, we started off this entire scalability journey, I think starting from 2017 really for the entire community, right? So but we really have come a long way. And in the beginning, there were kind of these two schools of thoughts. One is that, okay, we can scale up one single blockchain so that all the application can kind of sit on this particular blockchain, either through sharding, through different kind of plasma in the early days, and then kind of roll ups recently. And then there's also always that kind of a possibility to just scale the entire blockchain ecosystem scalability, just taking a step back and looking at the entire ecosystem instead of just one blockchain, as scaling this entire ecosystem by having multiple chains. And I think BSC, Avalanche, many other different kind of chains that definitely contributed to this. And I think in a way that we have succeeded on both of these schools of thoughts, right? So we have many different kind of layer ones that are running very robustly with users in shooting up in the millions in terms of daily active user. And there are also this kind of layer 1 plus layer 2 architecture, where essentially layer 2 is taking on the role of what we envisioned the sharding would do in the early days, right? But with this kind of scalability, we're essentially achieving scalability using parallelism, Basically, there are multiple kind of execution engines right now executing isolated different kind of applications on top of them. But I think like what's really need to be kind of solved right now in the community is that, okay, we have isolated the application now. If I'm a multi-chain dApp developer, the strategy that a multi-chain dApp developer currently have is to really just deploy the same application or same contract on multiple chains, and that's it, right? So there's no orchestration, there's no composability between different chains, and that obviously need to change, because like people would want to kind of be able to access all these other different chains in a unified and coherent manner. And this is where we see a lot of the opportunity in the interoperability coming from. And just to kind of cite some data, we saw in the last 2 months is overall, not only just us, but like in the overall kind of interoperability and the cross-chain asset bridge side, saw like close to 50 to like, I think if I remember correctly, it's a $50 billion transactions across like different chains. So that's a huge volume, and that's just for asset bridging. We're not even touching the cross-chain logic and all that stuff. So we see we have come a long way, and the next stage I would say is to kind of we have all these kind of different chains, but then how to synthesize them back into kind of a more coherent blockchain ecosystem.
Yeah, which is very paradoxical sometimes, right? We talked about decentralization and multi-chain, and now everything else getting so fragmented that's like, to your point, we want interoperability and a multi-chain world, which means you're then not say centralizing, but again, using the bridges, you're kind of accessing one point to access everything. It's kind of a paradox right now, right? So do you, and I appreciate you mentioned about the L1 and L2s, and Seller, your L2 solution, right? Do we think that this world might get into, there's been talk about L3s, for example, right? So even further fragmentation. What are your thoughts on that? Maybe Clayton or Eugene?
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, these chains are selling block space. And just the way the world works, there's never going to be just a single blockchain selling block space. Likely going to be dominant players in the space, but I think what is being discussed now is either the horizontal approach, which is launch more and more blockchains that can interoperate with each other, or take the modular approach, separating data availability and settlement and execution, and having end users sort of choose your own adventure, so to speak, but having these entry points for those people ultimately share the same data across chain, because and we support the multi-chain, we support a lot of bridges, we support a lot of interoperability protocols. We're pretty dominant in Cosmos ecosystem, etc. But at the end of the day, there's risk to an end user when you are interacting with bridges, because now you're just not trusting a single blockchain, you're trusting 2 blockchains and a bridge. And as things get a little bit more interconnected, I think we need to be a little bit more careful in how we scale, because like you mentioned before, like $50 billion in assets, like on a bunch of different bridges, that's a lot, right? And a lot of those assets are not actually secured by blockchains anymore, depending on where they're locked. So that would be there's going to be a lot more blockchains, but then the modular approach is going to start getting interesting as well.
Interesting is like a very catch-all term, Clayton.
Yeah, so I mean, like
value that gnarly, getting gnarly, getting I don't know what.
No, I mean it's very interesting because I say interesting because it hasn't fully developed. I think if anyone's read Vitalik's Endgame that he wrote in December, or followed a project like Celestia that's being built on Tendermint right now, that sort of modular approach is just getting started. So I think there's a lot of potential value to be unlocked there. But I say interesting because it's crypto, and I'm optimistically skeptical about anything I see until it actually happens. But I would definitely see it as a value add potentially moving forward.
I love that phrase, optimistically cynical, right? You say it's like basically realistic.
No, skeptical.
Oh, yeah. Skeptical, yeah, skeptical, yeah. No, I think that's kind of where some of us also are. So maybe I can go to Eugene, right? Eugene, so you work with many different kind of teams and projects who are working with you to launch and scale. So a larger question, and this is something actually more kind of briefly touched upon as well, right? So when you go to the question of developers, when they're looking at which chain to kind of start in, right? They start their journey in. Kind of what are the considerations that we're looking at, or what they should be looking at?
Right. So yeah, I think to just give some brief introduction, I think we're still super early in the scaling game, and I think that crypto, from the user perspective, will look absolutely different in 10 years from now. I mean, it will be absolutely incomparable with what we see today, with all these chains that we need to switch between and so on. So for developers, it's pretty much the same thing. So when they want to build a app, they currently need to basically choose between tens of different networks. Some of them, they are pretty much the same, right? So if you do different EVM forks, they cannot really differentiate in tech because they are EVM forks. So they try to differentiate with other things, and some projects do this really well, some not. So one of the things is basically like supporting the ecosystem, doing funding for the projects, like doing hackathons, doing partnerships with other projects in the space. So I think this is currently the sort of biz dev type of differentiation that all the chains have, or there are some other examples, right? So for instance, Solana, when they launched, they got major traction for NFTs because it was really cheap to mint NFTs, to use NFTs, unlike on Ethereum. So that they basically got this market immediately because there was a lot of traction for NFTs at that time, and there was no real solution to do this for very low cost, right? So I think it's for developers, it's opportunity driven. So they see some trend, like the meta that Kobe wrote a couple of weeks ago, right? So they catch the meta, they see, okay, today meta is NFTs, and those NFTs that are cheap to mint and cheap to transfer, and so on and so forth. So they go and they try to build stuff on Solana, for instance, and that's what drives the market in terms of the resources, I think. And now we are seeing crazy interest for like Rust developers, because now people realize, okay, it's cool to build NFTs on Solana, so let's build NFTs on Solana, right? So who knows what will happen in half a year? Maybe there will be, I mean, Starknet will launch and everybody will be building on Cairo, because it will be totally awesome to build some like roll-up based dApps on layer 3, right? So I think it's totally opportunity driven. It's kind of meta driven, and same for users and same for developers as well, because the major idea that developers want to build stuff that people use. So they basically build whatever is needed today, whatever has trend, whatever has media today. So I think, I mean, I'm not touching the core developers or protocol developers. I'm talking more about like dApp developers and these guys who are actually building applications, right? So core developers are totally different thing. So like Mo mentioned, and I totally agree with him on this coherence between different blockchains. This is necessarily needed in the space. So I think we are just too excited as an industry that, okay, we can do this and we can launch all these chains. They work. We can bridge assets. It really works. But if you look from outside, it's a complete mess. I mean, you have a wallet and you need to change between like 15 networks, and then you need to bridge. You have some kind of shady bridges or not shady bridges, and you're not sure whether your money will be bridged or not. I mean, so this coherence is indeed required. And in this sense, I mean, my personal preference is in L2 solutions rather than like scaling in L1 networks and having like 15 L1 networks that are most popular, because just it's more interoperable. I mean, if you have an L2 solution on top of some network like Ethereum, for instance, or you can actually build L2 solutions on any network, not only Ethereum, right? And yeah, so that's kind of my vision.
I mean, we have Mo here, right, as well, who can speak on the L2 side of things. But I think you brought up many different points. Any more, Wendy, any response to that?
No, I think I completely agree, and you know, we're more, I would say, like at this current days, more on the interoperability side of this. So like you know, we you know, as I mentioned, like we previously launched the Seabridge, which in the last 2 months has contributed about like $4 billion transaction volume and 250 billion basically cross-chain transaction volume, and Hopefully, we're not one of the shady bridges. So, but like I completely agree that interoperability is going to be the future. But like for layer 2 point here, I think any layer 1 bridge now, no matter how fast it is, it's definitely going to be needing like layer 2s on top of like or any kind of a branched out sharding based approach, because like we are as an entire community, like the entire DeFi community, for example, just to put things into perspective, the entire DeFi space DAU is roughly around the daily active user of a game that is published on Apple App Store in the US that is ranked maybe 300 and 500 in the entire gaming ranking list. This is how small we are. Like the entire ecosystem is smaller than just the one game's DAU. And if we kind of reach to we're already seeing chains like BSC that is taking on the load, right? So they're taking on millions of the DAUs that are much more than just the small DeFi space. But like at that point, like definitely any chain, like people are talking, okay, yeah, that chain is kind of being slow today. The other chain is being slow today. But the thing is that the other chains that just doesn't have that level of user. If the level of user gets reached to that point, every chain will every layer 1 will slow down and basically not working at some point. So, scaling, I would say, is definitely not a topic that is only for certain layer 1s, but like actually, very much so for every layer 1s that is out there. And definitely this kind of a branch out, a style, starting or roll up or layer 2 or roll up based, scalability is going to be the way to go. And interoperability between them is definitely going to be needed after that.
Yeah, I also just wanted to add a couple of cents to Mo that basically we are not only early in DAUs, we're also very, very early in tech. So I don't think we should think about tech as being okay, it's done. I just need to scale it. I think it's super early in tech. I mean, look at Solana; it shuts down like every couple of weeks, pretty much, and then over the weekend nobody can boot it up and so on. So and things happen, like BSC was a disaster like a month ago. Now it's much better. So like the tech is not there yet. So I think people are just figuring out the tech, and it's great. And I don't think we're actually ready to scaling for like to onboard all the people on Earth. So I think it's good that it's still small, honestly speaking. I don't think we should onboard all the people on Earth right now because it's still quite immature tech, and it will take a few years to complete it for sure.
Yeah, just add something to most comments. So basically, we have some data or statistics to agree with the most comments. So talking about Solana, probably Solana have the most expensive, most advanced hardware among all the blockchains. Even they start to see the bottlenecks in their blockchains. So we definitely, we see the downtimes of Solana, not due to the infrastructure itself, just due to the crypto consensus layer itself. So yeah, definitely multi-chain is the way to go. And especially I would say it's most critical for BSC because almost already out of capacity already. So I think for next couple of months, we can see the progress here.
Thanks for saying that. And I wanted to return to something Eugene said regarding kind of the core devs and the kind of depth devs, right, and how they're choosing. And so Eugene, you kind of like almost kind of saying that, the devs are going to, where utility is, right? I think you used that term, or where users are, but also almost like shiny new tech, and like I'm gonna like go there to build stuff, right? I got a sense from you, Eugene. Is that accurate to kind of say that?
Well, I think shiny is an aspect, definitely. Like when people see like good documentation, good tools, and they enjoy it, they for sure go there as well. But I think most developers are pretty practical, so they go where money is, and they go where like DAUs, these DAUs are. But of course, if they choose between some dockless protocol that they have no clue how to build, and then some awesome protocol that has extensive docs and like libraries, SDKs, they would of course rather choose the one that with a lot of tooling, right?
Cool, thank you. Yeah, so I wanted to kind of go a little bit deeper, maybe to all the work that all of you are doing, right? Because again, we're going back to scalability, so we can dive a little bit more. We can maybe go back to Clayton at this point. Like, how are you helping the industry scale?
Yeah. So we are trying to support 50 new proof of stake protocols this year. So we're actively speaking to builders all the time, finding ways that we can support them, and through an investment, through running proof of stake infrastructure, through running developer infrastructure, through onboarding the right people, whether it be institutions, if they're like building an institutional DeFi product on a ecosystem that we support, or they're looking for community contributions. We actively we're a core developer team on the Graph protocol on top of what we do. So we got a grant last year, essentially to bring the Graph to every other protocol outside of Ethereum. So we're actively building in the space outside of just providing infrastructure to support chains, and be a happy medium between Web3 and staking and on-chain participation, and institutions who hold tokens. I think that's a big difference between what proof of stake chains has done for the space. Is that there's actually a reason for these larger holders to actually participate on chain, outside of DeFi, to where they're actively securing the protocol, and they have actual skin in the game. But and outside of that, I think if you're just trying to take advantage of short-term gains, I think that the hardest thing to get in this space is reputation, and maintaining that reputation is actually like providing value at some capacity, because you can't buy reputation long term.
Love that. Anyone else wants to talk a little bit deeper about how you are helping in this whole industry scale up? We want to hear about what you're doing as well, not just discuss
Okay.
how.
Well, Stanley, you can go first.
Okay. Yeah. We can. I can talk I can talk a little bit about what Anchor do to scale up the blockchain space. So basically, one of our services called the public RPC, or public protocol, or internally we call it Anchor protocol. We're trying to build a service for the developers and the user, easy to access to the blockchains. So just show some stats. So for example, we are handling more than 300 billion requests on a monthly basis. For every day, we approximately handle 10 billion requests, and we are the probably the number one for Phantom, Polygon, and also Binance Smart Chains. And also, we trying to replicate our stack to all other protocols, which we closely working with. So basically, I think the next step could be Avalanche. Next step could be Near or Solana. So basically, what we're trying to do is we want to provide a very easy to use, very easy to access, stable and reliable access point for the user to easily access to the blockchains. So of course, for the players of this space, we can see there's a institutional, there is individual, there's a dev and the builders. Maybe people are asking why or how they want to, or do they need to handle the node themselves? I would say probably no, because first of all, the value they're trying to build to the community or to the state space is not to maintain node, right? It's not to make a node up and running 24/7. They just want to have a access to the node, to the blockchain, and start to contribute with maybe a DApp, maybe a game, or any kind of applications. So I think on Anchor side, the one very important value proposition is that we can provide a very, very stable infrastructure for the entire space to easy to access. However, for that is on the client side scalability. For the protocol, we definitely need to work with all the team itself, just like BSC, just like Solana, just like Polygon. And if we see its capacity or anything we can help to contribute, we co-develop with the team and trying to integrate that to our protocol as well. Yeah, basically that's it. Yeah.
Thank you, Stanley. I think Mo, go ahead, Mo.
Yeah, sure. Well, thanks for giving us some time to show our own project. So, but yeah, really, what we have been trying to do is really to change the paradigm of how multi-chain apps are being built. So we really want to build, what Seller inter-blockchain communication framework now takes in the shape of Seabridge, which is asset bridge that is connecting to 12 different chains and processing already billions and billions of dollar transaction volume. But we don't stop there, right? So like the entire Seller inter-blockchain communication framework is very general that allows developers and users to use, to change their dApps from multi-chain deployed to something called interchain native. So basically, user will have the capability to have a single transaction UX where they're sitting on one chain, but be able to access logics on all the other chains. So what this means is that you can build exciting applications like decentralized exchanges that allows user to swap, like let's say a token across multiple chains from just the one chain and only one transaction. And the yield aggregators that can allow user to manage like multi-chain vaults to move their fund from this chain's vault to a different chain's vault, all standing from maybe a completely different chain. And you can enable new kinds of governance where there's no need to kind of move your governance token to vote and to kind of participate in governance protocol across different chains, but you can just have your governance token wherever the application is or wherever your preferred blockchain is, and participate the entire protocol's governance globally. And you can have empty marketplaces where like users are sitting on one chain but bidding on a item that is basically taking place, an auction that is taking place on a completely different chain without even moving fund cross chain. So there are a lot of things that this kind of what we call a interchain native approach can do that we are currently still don't have, and really just scratching the surface. And that's what really excites me as we kind of begin this year, because that's going to kind of significantly transform how users are experiencing and kind of using dApps in the future. Eventually, we envision a kind of a stage where even like maybe the blockchain itself is kind of abstracted away, so the user don't even need to kind of switch between different blockchains or even be aware that, okay, I'm managing and handling asset on that particular blockchain, but just like viewing this kind of entire blockchain ecosystem as a unified interface to kind of enjoy the ecosystem's applications on top. So I'm not saying that we're going to get there like instantly, but starting from just transforming the multi-chain deployed to an interchain native app would be the first step to do that. So that's really what we have been focusing on.
Yeah, I love this interchange native and the stuff you're doing more at Seller, right? So I'm going to jump into that first later before we go to Eugene and ChainStack. Yeah. So when we talk about that, then we talk about EVM and non-EVM chains. Do you have a view on that perspective? Because you're interchain native, you're supporting many chains. You're interchain native across many different kinds of chains. Right? Do you have a view as to whether EVM chains would prevail, for example, in the longer run?
I think right now it's still a bit early to say, but like in general, I would say like EVM chains are definitely getting traction, on all fronts, because it has the most important thing, which is the developer mindshare. I would say like for non-EVM chains that part of catch up is still needs to be done for sure. Right, but like I think that definitely different languages. It's very interesting to see that different languages actually cultivate different kind of developer communities and even user communities and kind of different building mechanisms. So it's very interesting to see how this evolves down the road in the next couple of years. But yeah, from our perspective, we want to basically support everything and everyone.
Yeah, I like that a lot. Anyone else has any thoughts on EVM and on non-EVM? Like Eugene, you're nodding your head when Mo mentioned that. And you mentioned Rust earlier as well. Do you have a point of view on that?
No, I definitely agree that EVM is getting traction, which doesn't mean, again, that EVM will be the primary platform to build like in 10 years. Again, doesn't mean that. And the same as with other statements that basically non-EVM chains, that they need to catch up. I'm a little bit skeptical on like launching new chain with a new language all the time. I mean, okay, why do you launch this new chain? I mean, why do you launch this new language? I mean, we can just reuse what we've built before because it will be compatible and so on. So, of course, if there is some purpose for launching a new language, that makes sense. If the new language is launched just to basically get the market share for this language, I don't really like that. I mean, I'm a bit skeptical on like hundreds of different languages to build smart contracts on. I would rather say we should have like one or two or three, and then we're going to use them. And that's all. yeah, maybe I can talk a little bit about ChainStack and explain what we do since so we are basically a specialty node provider to some extent. So we basically offer customers tailored solutions for the different blockchain protocol APIs, dedicated nodes in different regions, in different hosting environments. So if, let's say, we have a trader in Singapore who needs like minimal latency to his Avalanche node, we can provide him a node in Singapore. If there's a DApp, like a DEX that wants to have like 10,000 requests per second, and their primary user base in the US, we can build this kind of infrastructure for them as well. So we're basically like a tailor-made infrastructure provider. We also offer like free nodes as well for all these protocols on our developer plan, so anybody can access and get their private endpoints. And what we're basically a boring blockchain company, so we sell reliability. So our customers, they don't want to talk to us. They want to use ChainStack and they want to pay for it monthly, and they don't want to reach out to us, because if they don't reach out to us, it means that there are no issues, there are no problems. And basically that's what we do. We make this chaotic and not very mature space more reliable, so that people can actually build things and they can sleep at night and they can be sure that their DApp is running and it's not broken, like, and the chain is not like unsynced and so on and so forth. So we bring reliability to the space.
Yeah, that's what Stanley. I hear reliability from Eugene and Stanley as well, right? I really like that word. And so at this point, I kind of go back again a little bit to the EVM kind of discussion, right? Because Eugene, you just said you were a skeptic, for example. You said you prefer 1, 2, 3. And here we have Clayton calling himself an optimist skeptic, right? Optimist skeptic. What are your thoughts on this EVM and the long-term question? Like, will Ethereum or EVM chains prevail over the 10-year period maybe? And Stanley, I would love to hear your point of view later as well.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, in the ZK space, you're seeing it, change already in the layer 2 stack on Ethereum. But I think the proven thing that happened last year is the type of community that Solana was being able to build without being EVM compatible whatsoever. And the type of builders that they attracted were people that weren't necessarily here yet, which is interesting. And I think there's a lot of white space there for other languages. Agoric in Cosmos is a JavaScript smart contract platform built on the Cosmos SDK that's about to launch this year. That's removing the barrier of entry to having to learn a brand new coding language to 3 million JavaScript developers that exist and are alive, and have probably heard about Bitcoin at some capacity. I think the education part is issue with scalability at all parts of the stack, right? I think we are optimistic about the fact that we are going to be able to teach 7 billion people how to store their private keys properly. I don't think that's going to happen. There needs to be some better way to do that, because my grandma's not going to do that. My mom's not going to do that. And so if we can find ways to onboard people based on the things that they already know how to use, that's a solution, at least for the short term. There's going to be some elasticity in the sense of like, there's going to be a dominant language for the next 5 years. There's probably going to be Solidity. There's going to be some separation. There may be some dominance in the next 20 years of a new coding language, but it's going to ebb and flow over time. There's not going to be one dominant language forever till the test of time. That hasn't proven true in any part of history ever. But I think it can get overwhelming for people who are getting their feet wet now. It's like, where the fuck do I start? Right? There's so many different things that like it's like the paradox of choice, right? There's so many things that you can choose. You just end up not choosing any of them and you walk away. So I think having a little bit of hand-holding or like some base just better entry points for people is a very good first step. We think we do a lot, but there's plenty of more stuff we can do on that front.
Yeah, and this is a great kind of link, right? Like the many topics are linked here. We've talked about developers choosing chains, how they choose, Shiny is one, but where users are is another. The availability of docs is another. The fact that there are 3 million JavaScript, so the familiarity of language, right? And Stanley, I think much earlier you kind of mentioned a point regarding, again, you kind of divided scalability into two kinds of scalability, right? So I kind of want to talk about scalability now from the dev side. Or rather linking it to ecosystem and devs, right? So again, from the BSC side, we have 1,200 devs building on BSC and growing. We've grown really fast, as all of you know. My background pictures in the year kickoff. We just did a kickoff after like 1.5 years of being around, right? So we're immensely proud of the growth of the BSC ecosystem, right? But we look at the longer term future, as many of you have mentioned, several other chains like Solana, and Avalanche have all done really well in terms of growing the ecosystems as well. So I would love to kind of hear your thoughts on kind of your point of view when you look at the space again and again to the topic of scalability. How do you see, like, what does health of an ecosystem mean to you, right? Like, we use as a proxy, again, number of dApps. That's one, right? We talk about technical stuff already, a lot of TPS and blah blah blah, right? But what do you mean? What's a healthy ecosystem?
We have a successful story, which is Phantom, which I mentioned maybe a couple of times when I introduced Anchor. So a healthy ecosystem. So first of all, it must have a very good tools. So a good tools is not from beginning, and I mean people will start to build it and start to build first couple of dApps, first a couple of swap, first couple of dApp, first couple of games. So for that reasons, I will say for a healthy ecosystem, first of all, it need to have a very good API service. No matter it's the protocol team themselves to provide it or have a third party to provide it, it must be very stable, must be very easy to use. I mean, of course, you can go to maybe Infura or Alchemy or any other company to get a node, but you still you need to sign up, right? You need to use a username, password, or even credit card. It doesn't sound like Web3. So so for that reason, so first of all, should be a very reliable API or RPC service in the space for user to use. As for Phantom, the one reason we see this a very good successful story is that the entire team, the entire space grow up dramatically just because the tools, rpc.phantom.tools. So we can see the transactions. So first of all, that take like about 80 to 90% of the entire Phantom RPC request, and also we literally see it's from a couple of hundred million requests go all the way to 5 billion requests a day. And I mean, people just love it, and talking about these tools all around on the Telegram, on the Discord, or even on Phantom's official website. So yeah, that definitely can help. And beyond that, once we have that, we can talk about, okay, there's a tools, there's a ecosystem built around it, and the different application run on it. Once it's reached to the consensus layers, bottleneck or capacity, then we probably at that moment we're talking about the next round. It could be layer 2, like using the rollup or ZK rollup, Optimist rollup. Or we can talk about the multi-chain solution here to further expand the capacity over here.
Thank you. And I'm just checking on time. We've got about roughly 15 minutes left. And I wanted to kind of go, again, I'm going back and forth a little bit, right? Because I don't like sticking, and being a Q&A and stuff like that. Again, we're at a bar or coffee shop, right? So I want to ask all of you are, again, different players in this ecosystem. What difficulties regarding scalability do you yourself face? Your project phase. We've talked about blockchains in general, right? And more your L2, right? But I mean, all of you would love to hear your own challenges in thinking about scalability and implementing it.
I would say the most finite resource in this space right now is people. I think I'm probably speaking for everyone when it's hiring. That's the most simple answer for us. Yeah.
I hear you. Us too, hiring, interviewing aggressively. Anyone else? Yeah, go.
Okay, I will say it's more infrastructure and more people or more teams to work on the core part of the blockchain consensus. I mean, we may have a lot of developers, but they work on the DeFi, they work on the app, they work on the game. They don't contribute to the capacity. So we need to have more people to work on the the structure of the blockchains and how to do. Maybe more is more expertise than I do, like work on the sharding, work on the scaling, and provide a good solutions, maybe open source solutions, and everybody can use that to their own chains. I think that will definitely help a lot.
Yeah, it's funny, but I think it will never happen, because if you look at open source, and if you think about like how we use internet today and all these like open source tools that we're using, that basically is supporting internet, they were built probably by 10 people or like 20 people, and they were building it because they liked to build it and not because they were paid well. So I think that's kind of reality. People just go to work where they feel like the money is, and they don't really want to like focus on the core thing. But I definitely agree that it could be improved here, and we can have more core developers. True. Yeah, that's for sure. But the reality, I think it's not gonna happen. We do not we don't have like hundreds of core developers on every protocol who are carefully like building it, unfortunately, because people just go to build where they see the biggest opportunity. But it's good because the space, I mean the crypto and Web3 space, they have a lot of enthusiasts who actually build not because they want to earn money or fame, just because they like doing things. So I think that crypto is blessed with regards to that, because there's a lot of enthusiasts here. So I think it's super important.
Mo, so how do you hire?
that is a top secret. but I think like really from kind of a referrals, it's I would say like so far the most effective if among all. And I just can't say it better myself. Like I agree with everyone that people is the most scarce and valuable finite resources in the space at this point. The education like barrier is still pretty high, unfortunately, even after all these years. If let's say there's like a fresh grad who had no blockchain development experience, and then from that to be able to build let's say some of the core protocols, that learning curve actually is pretty long. So, but it's worth it. Like it's worth it in the long term to kind of cultivate a better community and basically better for everyone.
Love that, right? I mean, so I'm just curious then, for your hiring process, do all of you give referral fee then or something? Do you incentivize like, I don't know, 5 grand, 10 grand? Yes, right. I see people nodding. Yeah, I think that's very key at this point. So okay, so we have about 10 minutes left, right? I want to ask you, if I were not here, okay, and literally all of you, 4 of you are literally meeting in a bar or cafe, and all of you are the lot tech expertise here. I know Clayton, you have a mix of both, right? What would you be talking about?
Well, I would be first to ask Anchor to run a node in the Seller IBC infrastructure, and also Clayton, sir, could you do the same thing for us? And also Eugene, hey, like use all of their services.
Yeah. We should definitely schedule a time to chat after this.
Yeah.
I love this new potential like partnerships,
Yeah, to expose our service to everywhere. Yeah.
I think in general though, for us, we're always looking, because we actively invest, we support a lot of chains that are meant to be used by a lot of different people, whether it's the DeFi entry point, the NFT entry point, the play and earn entry point from an end user perspective. But we're always looking as a company to use decentralized alternatives to what we use for our business on a day-to-day basis. We try to be as Web3 native as possible, whether that be potentially decentralized custody solutions, decentralized identity solutions, like going as all in as we possibly can as a company, being like actually using the things that we support on a day-to-day basis to scale what we can do and better for the space. And it's always like the one thing that I just naturally ask other people in the space, because if it's there's kind of like 3 pain points that this space is about, right? It's solving an end user experience. It's solving a developer experience, or it's solving like a problem that you naturally have by being here. And that's the one that's like kind of harder to find sometimes.
I love that you say that, right? So, the whole centralization thing again. So to everyone, how honestly decentralized are you? What percentage are we talking about? In terms of all your different, everything. Yeah, tech, infrastructure and all.
Sorry, Stan. So yeah, I can say for ourselves. So we are pretty decentralized in terms of people. So we have people everywhere around the world. So the team is quite decentralized. As for the services that we provide, we are not crypto natively decentralized, but we have reasonable decentralization because we're running like 5 different hosting facilities in 6 different regions. So we are not really dependent if like US East goes down, so we can easily like fall back to any other region. So, but we are far from complete decentralization. And like, for me, the target of decentralization in a way is sort of the graph network, because these guys are really crazy about decentralization, and in a good way. So they try to build everything from the ground up to be decentralized, and they don't have, well, they of course have some things that are not really decentralized, like hosted service, etc. But their vision is always completely 100% decentralized. So, but we are personally far from that, of course, and we are looking into that. So that's why if we meet with Clayton in the bar, I would talk to him about the strategy of how they decentralize Figment with the graph.
Mm-hmm. Okay, as for Anchor, I think we are approximately 80%, I will say, decentralized. Of course, we have decentralized teams, and our services are decentralized across the globe. If we have a customer from India, they probably will access our Asia Pacific service instead of United States. And also, if our United States or Europe data center is down, it won't affect our service except to adding some latency to our solutions. So for that part, we are pretty much decentralized. However, we still use data center, right? So if the entire data center is down, I mean globally, so this is what it is. So that for that reason, and also we have entrance point. For example, our service is under rpc.anchor.com. So it always have its entrance point, or even that entrance point may be down. It's just like every protocols, you will have your first node to connect, right? If that node is not returning to your config file, or is not hard coding to your source code where you're looking for your first node trying to connect to. So for that reason, I will say we are about 80% decentralized. For other service besides RPC, I think it's out of scope of this. I think for that, I will say it's about 50 to 60% is decentralized. But generally speaking, for Anchor, when we design a solution, we pretty much cloud native, Web3 native, and thinking about decentralized as a first priority.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, for us, we build, interoperability solutions and message routes between, different kind of chains. So the message router itself, which is called Stage Guardian Network, itself is actually highly decentralized and run by, many different validators. As you can see that I'm kind of continuously trying to seek that to be more decentralized by asking Anchor and, Clay Figment team and Chainstack kind of join the decentralization journey. So, that front is definitely pretty good. Like we also have a pretty decentralized team, but at the same time, like if the user are using, let's say, Seabridge in the front end, right? So like they will be accessing the RPC service provided by essentially Infura and everything. So right, I think this is like generally the case for the entire industry. Whenever there are application used, there must be some RPC service that is providing the service. Which essentially is creating some centralization point, but it's not. It's kind of out of the core protocol builder's control, because like for the sake of easiness, no one's going to run a full Ethereum node on their laptop. Still, everyone's kind of trying to talk to these RPC service providers, which is as the industry itself is becoming more and more decentralized. From 2017, we only have like maybe Infura, to now like we have a various range of vendors for all I would say like arguably better. So so that's definitely some progress that we're seeing as well.
So kind of linking this conversation to the trilemma thing, right? For blockchains, And again, the idea is that you can have all three, right? Scalability, security, decentralization. And again, so that's why bringing this topic of centralization and decentralization back to the blockchain space, or the core L1, L2s. What are your thoughts in terms of like what amongst the three, which should be the one that's least important? Is there such a variable, right?
I think it depends on what you want to do on chain. I mean, we talk to a lot of different people more and more often as well on the more traditional finance side of things. They actually think about decentralization weirdly more than you would think that they would be thinking about it. In the sense of like, what is the one chain that's not going to break no matter what, that I can participate in DeFi in? And like right now, that's Ethereum. Like that's the one that you can like probably confidently say that's going to be the hardest to break because it's so decentralized. But then decentralized is such a loaded word, right? Like, what does that mean? If Vitalik and 10 other people unfortunately have a severe accident, like what's going to happen to the development of Ethereum? It is like the builder aspect of it decentralized. Who's holding the tokens? How decentralized is the developer endpoints? All those things come into play. I think the thing that people are going to, at least what has been happening in the past 2 or 3 years, is you solve for scalability first. That's like all these new layer 1 chains that are coming out. There's plenty of block space to be sold, and then figure out the decentralization component later, all while promising security in different ways through state consensus. We haven't seen a malicious attack on most of these layer 1s at all, because there is risk attached to it. You can lose billions of dollars now because they're so large by trying to break the network from getting slashed. But I think at the end of the day, it's like you can look at some chains and their validator architecture is smaller, and then just point fingers and say not decentralized and walk away. And I don't think that's really true, or the appropriate response, because at the end of the day, it's more decentralized than the alternative, which is not being here. And I think as long as you're gradually trying to decentralize every part of your stack over time, you're doing the right thing. And some people have the privilege of going faster than other people. Like the people that we work with, we can't go as fast. Like we work with, regulated entities in the United States, probably the slowest people in the world in terms of participating on chain. And so we have to handhold them through the process and be the person who's only 2 or 3 degrees in front of them in their journey, while still holding their hand forward. I think sometimes it can be overwhelming when you see someone so hardcore on the other side of the decentralization spectrum, to where it seems like such a far journey to get to where you don't even do it. And so you need this spectrum of how you're participating on chain. There's going to be plenty of people that are going to settle on Ethereum without knowing that they're settling on Ethereum, because the tech stack has evolved so much, and not care that they're using ultimately a centralized wallet to earn 4% on a stable coin in the future. And ultimately I think that's fine.
I mean, the BSC side, I think it's a CD5. Well, decentralization is good for many, many aspects. But honestly, an average person, our friends on the Web2 world, they don't care. They don't know what is decentralization, right? Again, tech will disappear. So I personally believe in that space. And Stanley, I noticed you unmuted yourself. Whether you have something to say, I think.
I think I totally with Clayton. It's really depend on what you're trying to do. So, for example, for the DeFi UI part, you want to have decentralization. For the app, you want to build the index, you want to have scalability. And if you are building the custody service, you probably want security. It is true for the current technology. It's pretty hard to find a balance between all of these three. If you want to all of these three, you probably want to wait for the technical breakthrough for the next generation or something. But at this moment, yes, it's depend on what you're trying to design, what you're trying to do, and you design the system according to what's your first priority.
Awesome. Okay, so kind of last minute, so I want to end off by going over just around the table, right? So 2 questions to each of you. Keep it fairly snappy, yeah. So for someone kind of either really semi in the space, like in the Web3, crypto blockchain crypto space, looking to help out in this, the entire ecosystem? So all of us, we may be working in different projects, different protocols, different chains, but we're all, again, like very vested, I guess, in this vision, right? So what would you recommend to someone? Like, how can they help out? I know some of your services that might be relevant. And then second question is that, what are you most excited for in terms of your business for 2022? Should I pick someone? Yeah, go ahead, Stanley. The first unmute.
Okay, cool. So the first exciting business for 2022, game. I would say I definitely can see a lot of gaming company, even for the company is shooting for the AAA game, trying to join the blockchains. So I think that's a major reason why I think the BSC should catch up in terms of the capacity. Otherwise, it will miss such opportunities. Otherwise, they will choose Phantom or Polygon other blockchains. For that, I think as blockchain companies, we need to leverage everything we can to provide infrastructure, to provide the development experience like SDK, like the plugin or whatever, and also to help the game company to get familiar with the blockchain like NFT marketplace. I think it's a whole round experience. Every blockchain company trying to seize and trying to leverage, trying to seize this opportunity for the next, I would say, for the next hype moment of the both gaming and the blockchain companies. And as far as for the first questions, like what we want to get to help this industry for the scalabilities. Again, I think more good developer to work on the core part of the blockchains. I mean, this is definitely the fundamental problem of the scalability of the blockchains. Unless this is get breakthrough, otherwise, we the only thing we can do is add more nodes, add more infrastructure to handle more load. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you, Stanley. Clayton, yep, go ahead.
Yeah, definitely. So I would say for people trying to get into space, community participation is like absolute need in this space. If you want to get started, listen to a podcast, hang out on crypto Twitter. You have to do it to learn at the start. I think for us as a company, in January, spinning up our Binance Smart Chain Validator, that's a goal. But also in 2022, really just trying to streamline the ability for our custodian wallet and exchange partners' ability to participate on chain. Because at the end of the day, like we are a proof of stake infrastructure provider, but that requires on-chain participation, and it's now that participation on chain is actually serves two purposes, right? Like you can earn rewards to do it, but you're making the chain more secure as well. So you're kind of doing your duties by staking, and hopefully we can support more liquid staking protocols down the line so that those locked tokens don't necessarily become a liquid, so that we can support the ecosystems built on top of it as well. But yeah.
Yeah, love that. Thank you, Clayton.
Mm-hmm.
So for those who are joining the ecosystem, I would highly recommend to read the recent New York NY Times article about how to go cautiously to the blockchain rabbit hole. It's really nice. It's really outlines all the steps that you need to do. I think the most important part here is just to use this thing. Like just use this thing. Just try to use it. Just try to download MetaMask. Just try to go on buy some NFT and mint some. I don't try to do something. So I think that's the most important, because that what makes you interested. That because after you use it, you say, oh, that's nice. It really works. I have something. So that's why, for instance, for all like my friends' birthdays, I try to give them some NFT. And these guys, they have no clue about blockchain. So I say, okay, so download Coinbase wallet, and I just send them some NFT, and they, oh, now I have an NFT. That's cool. So for what I wish people solving complex problems, because people tend to solve easy problems, and that's unfortunate, because there are very few people who want to actually solve complex problems in everywhere, like in protocols and infrastructure everywhere. So I wish for more people solving complex problems. For us, I think as a company, the most interesting would be because now we have pretty particular verticals that people are building on blockchain for. So I'm looking for interesting like verticalized solutions that we can provide to this, like gaming, exchange, NFT industries, that will simplify building on them.
Sounds as if like two people here and mentioned gaming, for this year. So still a trend, right? Yeah. On our side, just a little thinking about the BSC thing. We have been investing a lot of gaming. I think a lot of you have seen our 200 million investment program with partnering with Animoca brands as well, Web3 gaming leader. We're looking at way more. So I'm with you on that. So Mo.
Yeah, well, so for new, blood joining in the entire blockchain ecosystem, I would say like the best way to help is to probably first to kind of talk to as many people as you can, because like this space is especially in the beginning can be very overwhelming in terms of like what's available there to build and what you can kind of participate on. It seems to be there are hundreds of things that one can do, especially for a developer, right? So I would say like definitely take some time to really think about where are the the most key things that one can contribute, and in most cases like they have equal or like generally very good financial returns in this space. But like I think choosing a kind of area that is important to work on is something that I would say like to take some time to talk to people. And generally, the good thing right now for blockchain space is that everyone is very accessible. Like crypto Twitter is just like out there. Like you can literally send messages and people generally reply. I tend to reply generally if people are asking me kind of basic questions as well. So I think that would be kind of my suggestion. And for us, the biggest thing, as I mentioned, is to really kind of transform how multi-chain apps are built in this year, right? So we want to kind of go to a world where it's really not just like a multiples of the same isolated copies, but we can kind of synthesize them all together into a uniform user experience. That will be something that we'll be pushing on.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Mo. So interestingly, like Seller is one of the recipients of the BSC Growth Fund's liquidity incentive programs. So I'll take just a few seconds to kind of talk about it a little bit. So BSC, we have 1 billion, right? Really meant to really supercharge the industry across different sectors. We heard a lot about how these teams right here, so Anchor, Figment, Chainstack, and Seller, talked about hiring talent. So we have 100 million for talent development, working with like R&D with universities, high, developers, essentially trying to grow the talent pool. We've got 300 million for builders and top dApps, and a whole bunch of money for liquidity incentives as well as investments. So we have a lot going on. The BSC ecosystem is super active. Again, more than 1,200 dApps and growing, with amazing people like these gentlemen right here who are building stuff, solving complex problems, solving even more complex problems hopefully, and trying to build this whole ecosystem. So thank you again, everyone. Stanley from Anchor, Clayton from Figment, Eugene from Chainstack, Mo from Seller, and thank you all for watching. Have a good day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you. Bye-bye.